In an op-ed in the Washington Post, Alberto Gonzales writes this: regardless of the way Trump has gone about raising his concerns over whether he's getting a fair trial, none of us should dismiss those concerns out of hand without carefully examining how a defendant in his position might perceive them. And we certainly should not dismiss them for partisan political reasons. Joining me now is Attorney General Gonzales. Thank you so much, sir, for taking the time. I am so curious to get your thought. Okay. For a defendant who has not asserted his right in a court of law about these kinds of concerns and put forth a motion for recusal, how on earth can it be legitimate to go out in the public and say these things?
Well, I'm not supporting Donald Trump's comments. I didn't write what I wrote in support of his comments. I didn't write what I wrote in support of the notion that the judge should be recused solely on his race. What I wrote to say that Donald Trump, like every litigant in the United States, has the right to a fair trial before an impartial judge. And if there are any questions relating to that impartiality, even the appearance of impropriety is enough to cause a judge to recuse himself, then there should be a recusal, because this is not about the judge. This is about a litigant getting a fair trial before an impartial judge. And that's the reason that I wrote the piece.
I'm glad you said that. What you wrote exactly to that point is, if judges and the trials over which they preside are not perceived as being impartial, the public will quickly lose confidence in the rule of law upon which our nation is based. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. But what if it's backwards? What if this appearance of impartiality is coming from the defendant, because up until now, no one can find any evidence other than the birthplace of the parents of the judge as to any kind of impartiality? It is only coming from Donald Trump's own mouth. And he may be actually poisoning the public perception as opposed to the judge doing so.
Well, then the judge will have to make a calculation as to whether or not, because this is not about the judge. It's about our judicial system and the appearance that any litigant, no matter their circumstances, whether or not they are racist, whether or not they're a child molester or a rapist or a terrorist, that they're going to get a fair shake in our courts. I mean, that is the #1 priority. Now, the fact that Donald Trump has attacked a Hispanic judge, to me, makes me angry, because I've worked very hard with Hispanic organizations to get good qualified Hispanics on our courts. And so it makes me angry, some of these comments, which I think are wrong and inappropriate. But again, this is not about the judge. This is about our judicial system and the right of every American citizen to get a fair trial before an impartial judge.
I agree. I want to bring up another issue in your op-ed, because you don't only point to the issue of the Hispanic heritage, which is all that Donald Trump is pointing to. So this is just solely on you as I go forward now. You pointed to some appointments of counsel, a law firm that had paid the Clintons in the past for speeches, and the fact that this judge had made those appointments as perhaps something that should lead us to question, and these are your words, it might not be unreasonable for a defendant in Trump's position to wonder who Judge Curiel favors in the presidential election. Well, for that matter, should there be some kind of a litmus test for any judge who sits in any case? Because God forbid you're a Republican being judged by a Democrat.
Well, listen, I don't know all of the facts in connection with that appointment. I don't know all the facts in connection with the relationship, if any, between the La Raza Lawyers Group that the judge is a member of and the National La Raza Organization. The point I'm trying to make is these are the kinds of questions that should be asked in connection with any case. That is, whether or not does the judge have the kind of relationships or are there circumstances that exist that would call into question the impartiality of the judge. As I said in my Washington Post piece, from my perspective, this judge can serve effectively. I wouldn't have a problem having a case heard before this judge. And as I said in my Washington Post piece, the call for a recusal of a judge based solely on ethnicity, in my judgment, is wrong. And to do it publicly, in my judgment, demeans the judge and really does hurt the reputation of the judiciary. And I just think it was inappropriate the way that Donald Trump did it in this case.
Mr. Attorney General, I appreciate you taking the time to clarify and also to further elucidate us on your feelings about this. Reading, at first blush, it looked as though that you did feel sympathetic to that initial statement of, and I get clearly that you do not, that heritage alone, and you're on the record now, it is inappropriate to bring up heritage alone.
That is correct. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you, sir. Look forward to